How many of you corporate recruiters, search firm, consulting firm recruiters are recruiting in roles right now? Raise your hand. Okay. Trying to figure out why a few of you are in this room. Like, why are you here?
Because we love you, Paul.
Well, that can't be. All right. Well, hold on. I didn't even finish my. I didn't finish editing my slide. Can we hold on? No, forget it. I'm not gonna worry about it. That's not the why do recruiters suck so bad was from this morning. I didn't create a whole deck for this, so I want to make sure I've got everybody in the audience here. I'm talking about recruiting teams. Okay. If anybody doesn't want to talk about recruiting teams, you can. I'm not offended if you get up and you walk out the door. Okay. Then if you're not a recruiter, then why are you here? Yes.
I hire a bunch of people and I try to.
Oh, I should have asked the question in a second way. How many of you are hiring managers, software director, a CTO-ish? Okay, so now we're getting even more. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I'm like, why are so many people in here? I didn't think it was going to be like this. All right. Here's the thing. If you happened to be in my earlier presentation, I was pretty subdued. I was a little mellow. I jokingly said that the over-under on sucks, the word sucks, was 6.5, and it was only like 2 or 3. I've since had a little caffeine, the pizza luce, seen some friends that I haven't seen in a while, so now I'm really riled up. And then we've been talking about recruiting for like the last 2 hours at a table out there, and now I'm even more opinionated than I was before. So good luck to you. Short version, for those of you who don't know me, I've been recruiting in 20 years, 20 plus years. I mentioned this morning I say 20 plus now because I'm 51, and I don't think 24 years of experience sounds cool. It sounds like, wow, you've been doing that too long, right? So I say 20 plus. I'm coming at this from a perspective of the last 10 years of my career or so. Usually been working internally with companies. So I just finished a 9-month project at Granicus in St. Paul, or what was the former Gov Delivery. Got acquired by private equity along with Granicus a couple of years ago, mashed together, now an 1,100-person global company. I was their internal recruiter running their engineering for the last 9 months. And so sometimes I work with one client, sometimes it's 2 or 3 at a time. I don't know what I'm doing next. So that'll be part of the conversation later. I'm going to swear like a sailor. If you're offended, I'm sorry now. I'm just kidding. There's going to be an F-bomb, I promise you. Okay? Just kind of want to prep that a little bit. I intentionally ended up not wanting to create a deck. This is literally the agenda that was on the thing from Ministar, right? I got some things that I want to talk about that I think are important that I want you to ask questions or engage or tell me why you think that I'm wrong. I'm cool with that. Here's the premise. When I first started thinking about doing this again, it was the end of March. I was telling the leaders at Granicus and then friends of mine in town that you could already start seeing that West Coast tech companies were going to start slowing hiring down Q3, Q4, fearing a recession in 2023. And now the shit's hit the fan, right? So now you have, first it was a bunch of companies started putting in hiring freezes. The Meta one, by the way, actually wasn't a layoff. It actually was that they essentially had hired 75% of their year engineers by the end of March. So they actually probably did too good of a job. Some companies have been over-hiring so far, which is why they're putting a hiring freeze in now. Some folks out there are just flat out laying people off, right? So there was a Coinbase announcement the other day, this week. Dan, was Wednesday, Thursday, somewhere in there? So they're like letting people go. And then, of course, Elon Musk did his thing on Thursday. Well, he's done a lot of things in the last days. Right, the first one was that if you don't want to go back to the office, I'm paraphrasing. And there's a camera, so Mr. Musk, I'm sorry. Should you ever see this? But essentially it was, come back to the office or screw you. And then 2 days later, he says, we need to lop off 10%. I'm not shocked that he did the first one, because if people just opt out going back to the office, then he doesn't have to lay 10% off, and now there's a lot less cost to this, right? If there was ever a time going back to our conversation as we were walking in, and I'm going to use Best Buy as an example, if I may. If there was ever, and here's the first F-bomb. If there was ever a time for a Minnesota or Midwest company to get really fucking aggressive with their recruiting, it's now. If you are financially stable, you are growing, you are hybrid or remote, now, loud, frequent. CTOs, if you can get developers to do it, we'll just come in, hang on. Don't worry about it. Like if there was ever a time, right? Dan at Omnia Fishing has just hired, what, 4 or 5 devs? And he's in the CTO, so Omnia Fishing, customer, fan, essentially that I can buy my fishing tackle online through them, but they are doing customized reports by lakes, so that if I'm fishing in Alexandria or if I'm fishing on Minnetonka, I can figure out, here are some of the fishing reports, here might be the lure given the conditions at the time. Freaking adore these folks, because now it's nerdy tech stuff and I can fish at the same time. Dan's been posting every time he hires somebody, usually with a photo, right? Because it's validation. So now, you know, the next time he can get a collage. Actually, you did it the other day, your stand-up. You said something about we've got more people than we've had. Validation, right, that we're hiring. Okay? Here's the thing. This Minnesota nice passive-aggressive bullshit we do has got to stop. And this is me saying it to myself. The hair in the back of my neck is tingling, and hypocrite's a thought balloon above my head right now. But I am tired of playing it safe, folks. Like, what if we actually said we're open for business and we're hiring? And be bold about it. Wait, told you I'd work it in. We were talking on our way in this morning. We haven't seen each other, for like the rest of us, in a freaking long time. But we got to start being bold about stuff. Like, we keep saying, oh, we're, like, just, if you were a data engineer in town, and Dan Wick says, in the next 60 days, I'm looking for one, you should freaking go work there. And he should say it almost like that, like you'd be stupid not to come work here. At Granicus, I was this way. Okay? Market rate salaries were okay. Flexible time off, fully remote, a mission-based company, global and diverse. Beat that. That's how we should be recruiting now. Like, I got so many F-bombs. The tell your story piece. If you, okay, do this a different way. Flashback to January 6th of 2020. Pre-COVID, if you were hiring back then in some form or fashion, you were tired, you were stressed, you were talking about competing salaries, couldn't find who you were looking for. And here's my next tangent. Anyone who says that they can't find who they're looking for is lying. It has never been easier in the history of humankind to find people. LinkedIn and Google and everything else that scrapes everything. It's that you can't find someone who wants to work at your company, in your environment, at your salary, is why you can't find people. I'm doing really good with the filter today. January 6th of 2020, we were tired and stressed. Then COVID happened. Summer of 2020, right, most leadership teams scared and freaked out, didn't know what to do for obvious reasons. Summer of 21 starts the Great Resignation. Company leadership teams are scared, freaked out, don't know what to do. Same exact emotions, by the way. It's just that the economic conditions were different. I think this year, January 3rd was the first Monday. And so if you've been hiring or if you've been recruiting, what changed between January 6th in 2020 and January 3rd of 2022? Pardon my language, but not a fucking thing. Your career pages look the same, your job descriptions look the same, your hiring process is the same, everything's the same, and then you're shocked. And it's not really us, though, frankly. I think our leadership teams and our CEOs are the ones who are the problems, by the way. Because we are understaffed. I said this in the presentation this morning, right? We're understaffed, we're undertooled, we're under-budgeted, we've got more stress, working in a remote environment, and then CEOs are shocked that we can't hire as fast as we need to. Well, you're actually the problem. You're actually the problem. Say it to the camera, I'm kidding. Right? But like nothing's changed. And so one of the first things we got to do is we got to start telling our story. We got to tell our story on Instagram. We got to tell our story on LinkedIn. We need to put a video camera. We need to take one of those video cameras and put it in front of your hiring manager, your leader, your CTO. Why do you want to come work here? Why should someone come work with us? I will suggest that every job description, 90% of job description, okay, try this. How many of you in this room, now we're going to do an interaction thing, right? If your company has a job description out there in the world right now, raise your hand and then keep it up. How many of you like it? It's way more than I was expecting. Most job descriptions suck, right? It's a 17 bullet point of a wish list of a robot we hope to find in a human. It's what we want. How about we say, here's why you want to come work for us, and here's what's in it for you, and don't put benefits. Benefits is not a reason why someone should come work for you. They should be a given. It's table stakes. Like, why does someone kind of want to come work for you? You've got a good culture. You're a diverse environment. You're remote first. Here's a photo of our team at Habitat for Humanity. Right? But if you were to look at your company's LinkedIn posts of the last 90 days, or the Instagram posts, are there actually like, oh, hello. Hello, Lydia. Hi. Like, there are companies today, there's two that I know of in the Midwest, who their last Instagram post on their company page is Blackout Tuesday, June of 20. So, like, you all like fell in a void for the last 2.5 years? Or worse, you haven't done anything with diversity, equity, inclusion since? Like, were you just trying to play to the masses? Like, there have been a few conversations this afternoon, or I suppose it's afternoon now. The companies in town that I found out are 350 people in town that were 100 before COVID, and I don't have a clue. By the way, and they're like, and no one knows. Like, how can that be? Because we're not telling our story anymore. Like, it's like COVID happened and we all stopped talking to each other, which is partially true, right? I don't want to beat this one so hard, but we're not giving people a reason why to come work with us. And I don't know, like, every engineering group in town's got something cool about them. Cool people, cool product, interesting problems you're trying to solve. Wes, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, what's your exact title now? Because I can't think of it because it's too long.
Director of Technology Transformation.
I thought it was longer than that.
Okay. We can add some more words if you want.
When you were at where? MIT a couple of weeks ago?
Just like yesterday.
Spatial time COVID.
Yeah.
Why would someone want to come work on your data team?
You really are putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
We do really cool, interesting things at Best Buy.
What does that mean? That's BS.
Oh. You really put me on the spot. I mean, I tell people there's so many different things when you think of the different types of data that you can work with at Best Buy, from having 100,000 employees, so people analytics, to stores. Where do we put our stores? Lydia's trying to escape.
That's okay. She can.
So just all the different types of data, we're making important decisions, like our total tech membership that we just launched. I mean, that was based off of looking at the data and saying, hey, this is something that we think is going to take off. Let's make sure we price it the right way so we still make some money off of it. But it's all kinds of cool stuff.
Now I'm going to put you really on the spot.
Oh my God.
Is any of that in your job description?
Probably not.
And I'm not, like, it's just, Wes and I go back a long time. But, like, we normally do, right? You need to have X number of years of this, Y number of years of that, experienced in this. You have to be a good communicator. And please tell me you don't have those, and you must be able to see, listen, hear, and lift 40 pounds. You just created a legal and an HR document. You didn't create a marketing post. You said, here's all the things that, like, come on.
So do you leave that stuff out?
If you can leave it out, or if you have the ability to, on a career page, have another link, so you still have it to make your HR legal friends happy, right? But most of the time we've done this because we've copied and pasted somebody's crappy Craigslist job from 10 years ago. And now we're trying to use it for ours. Yes?
I just want to add, because there's also been a hidden conversation around Best Buy. I don't work for Best Buy, but like 10 years ago, it was not a place to work. Now I look at like all the people I respect in tech.
Yep.
They're all freaking at Best Buy.
Yep.
Like the culture change is there, but that's not something, like there's also a hidden branding.
Yep. And this is that part about, like when Dan's posting, like this is our team. Like this is, one of the things I would suggest is when you're onboarding folks, my friends at PH Data are brilliant at this. Okay, here's some Instagram accounts to go look at. Go look at PH Data. Go look at Foundry. Matt, there's a couple more I'm missing. Who's got cool PH Data? PH Data.
I don't follow any companies on Instagram.
Don't you? Is it just all pizza with you?
I'm the worst person to ask. Yeah, sorry.
I thought you would have known.
It's all pizza.
I'll say we have a hashtag, LifeAtOST, and it's purposefully all about all of our fun stuff and the things that we're doing.
At Granicus, we started doing Team Granicus. What, PH, you have one, don't you?
You should have, yeah, I would maybe not look at their Instagram, but definitely check out their LinkedIn.
And so like, when you were interviewing for the role that you got now, or if you had come from the outside, when you went from your previous company to this one, you did all of the research you could do, right? Who am I interviewing with? Where did they work at? Who do we know in common? What are their posts? What are their photos? You wanted to read, everyone's doing this to us today, right? For sources and recruiters in the room, right? We're up on people's Twitter accounts. We're looking at Instagram. Like they're doing it on us too. So like for the corporate recruiters in the room, I'm assuming that if I find you online, I'm going to see a bunch of cool things about you with your hiring managers and your teams and sunset photos for this guy, right? But the answer generally is no. By the way, the people usually with the worst LinkedIn profiles are recruiters, which is ironic to me. We want people to give us all of their information and we give them nothing, right? I sound really negative, and I don't mean to, I'm fired up. Job descriptions. If you've got more than like 10 bullet points in a category, really rethink this. Like, come on. Like, I appreciate if you're looking for an iOS developer and you've got 3 to 5 bullet points, but you don't need all 10, because if you're looking for a senior iOS developer, they already know. Like, don't treat them like kindergartners. Lydia, what grade are you in? 3rd. Okay, don't treat them like 3rd graders. Like,
My brother's in kindergarten.
see? And where is he today?
It's at a birthday party.
Really? If your career page hasn't changed since January of 2020, if it doesn't say remote on it, if you don't have a collage of a Zoom photo, but a lot of career pages don't. Like,
Paul, what's the purpose of the collage of Zoom photo? I don't have that one, and I'm curious what that serves.
going back to what you and I were talking about a little while ago, you've got a pretty diverse group of people you work with. And what a best way to do that than show a bunch of faces of the diverse people you work with. So that when you say that you can come work on a global diverse team, you've proved it. The other part is because now I might see, we want to find people who might be like us, whatever our definition of us is. And we can go, oh, I can see myself working there. Right? And particularly now as we are doing some back in the office stuff and we are doing community service events and stuff, we should be taking photos of those. This is our team volunteering at. Yes?
So earlier there was a conversation over there about like the unspoken conversation about a workplace environment. The very notorious spoken version of that was the Domino's campaign, where they were like, our pizza sucks and we'll redo it for you. Is there a way for a company to do that of like, we sucked with our workplace environment 5 years ago or something, but we've reworked it by doing X, Y, and Z?
Tara, do you know of any? Who's gone that far? I see frequently CEOs on Glassdoor will go own bad comments, and they'll be like, look, yeah, we blew it. By the way, I adore that.
Is that anywhere but Glassdoor? Like, would they put that in a job description or something?
You know what? I'm going to answer your question slightly different.
Okay.
If I could get a client to do it, I would have them do it in a heartbeat.
I mean, Target kind of did a few years ago. They made it really clear that they were actually like trying to hire top people for real.
Yeah. And so, like, I said it early in the presentation, I'll do it again. I despise the phrases human resources, talent acquisition, and human capital because we make it sound like people are replaceable widgets, industrial revolution, 1800s. And we talk about that what we do is very personal. Like as recruiters and hiring managers, we learn a lot about people. We learned that Lydia's in 3rd grade and we've got a soccer game going on. And so if I were recruiting Wes, and Wes was my candidate, right? Like I would know all of these things about him. And I, as a recruiter, am going to know more about Wes for the next 6 months than anybody at the company that I work at. So why can't we be more human with folks? Earlier today was asked, why are so many companies saying that they're hiring and then ghosting candidates? See?
Should we rival that?
See, they agree. I appreciate that most of us recruiters are undertooled, under-budgeted, understaffed, have more recs than we had before. But we got to get back to people. I appreciate that many of us are working remote or hiring remote roles right now. But for those of us who are focusing on Minneapolis, St. Paul, reminder, we still live in a really large, small town. And people talk. Right? Like we can't afford to have an employer brand that sucks. And if you have to go have a conversation with a leadership team that says we kind of need to start over, like go start over. Hiring remote teams. So I want to be a little careful about some of the things that I say because, right, I want to be respectful for Granicus. Previous to COVID, Granicus company locations were in Denver, St. Paul, and Washington, D.C. Now hiring across the U.S. Well, and there's the global part to this too. So I've had people ask me, like, is it easier to hire remote teams now? Or people will say, but now we can hire remote teams, so recruiting is going to be easy. For the record, Facebook has around 50 people who fall under recruiting and talent acquisition in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Because we have, as Tara and I know, and we have a deep recruiting bench in this town. And so West Coast tech companies, how many people are at Salesforce? 2 that we know of, right? I think there's 9 in town. A couple of them are focusing just on recruiting in Minneapolis and St. Paul. So while we, depending on your definition, Minneapolis, St. Paul can be a 2nd or a 3rd tier tech city. So now we're recruiting, right? We want to like go to like Kansas City, St. Louis. Denver's probably on peer with us, or Detroit, right? But by the way, so did Salesforce, Facebook, GitHub. Sure, we can hire remote and recruit, but we're still competing for those same folks with the West Coast tech companies. So I don't know that remote has necessarily, it's helped some. Granicus, we did a great job hiring remote before I even got there. I don't get credit for that. The recruiting team did really, really well. But yes, there's more people to talk to and the competition increased too. So it's not a fail-safe. There was a salaries, we'll jump to that one for a second. Hired.com had a survey out a couple of weeks ago that said, I'm making up the numbers, because I remember exactly what it was. Let's say for a given tech role, the salary in 2021, we'll call it $100,000 to make the math simple. In 2022, we'll call the salary $105,000. The average remote salary being pitched in Chicago is $110,000. And it's that way for every city on the map, shocker, except for Seattle and San Francisco. Right? So if we're hiring and we're paying a Midwest salary, which there's nothing wrong with that, then we also have to be able to pitch what else do we have. And again, though, for the next months and for the next year, stability is going to be one of those things. Right? Like, if I know that my company's good, I'm going to scream this to every candidate, every place online. Because I don't know about you, but I want more stability in my life, not less, right? And so if we are looking at our career page and our job descriptions, and if our candidate experience needs work, like we need to fix this stuff, and we need to do it now. That's my opening ramble, by the way. I don't mean to be negative. I'm jacked up about this. I am frustrated. I'm more frustrated after my presentation this morning and talking to job seekers for the 2 hours afterwards and hearing their horror stories. Yes?
There's still a lot of companies who don't believe that remote work is real or good.
Good luck to them. So look, wait, I'm sorry. That was, first of all, that was rude of me to cut you off. Keep going.
No, like you're right. They're doomed. And also, a way that differentiation is possible is that you can prove you are good at it. Because working at a company that's remote first but sucks at it sucks a lot. Yeah.
So the idea being, and by the way, there also are people who want to come back to an office. There are people who want to be around people again. I am one of them. My girlfriend Tori was correct. She's like, Paul, you got to go to that office at least one day. We don't live together. And she's like, get out of the house. So that's when you know it's bad. When your girlfriend you don't live with tells you to get out of the house, it's a sign. And she was right, by the way. I'm glad we're here today. I can't, it's been like a family reunion today. And we figured out we haven't seen each other in like 4
or 5 years.
And we sit down, we missed a session earlier, but we sat down, and it was like 3 weeks ago, right? I haven't seen you in 3 years. You were the first 2 people I walked, after I got my badge, or my sticker, right? And we sat and chatted for half an hour. People do want to get back together again. So if you are remote, then do a happy hour once a quarter, once a month, do an event. At Granicus, they did Pi Day. I didn't know about it, I would have gone. All of 10 people showed up. We did May the 4th, we had 50 people sign up, and more than 35 show up. They're doing something again next month too. People do want to get back together again. There are people who do want to work 40 hours a week with people again. I'm not one of them.
That's part of my definition of being good at it. Like you need to figure out how to have that time, but also let people work somehow.
And for some of us, right, we don't even get to dictate this at all anyway, right? A leadership team has decided, and we're going to implement it. Does anybody have a difficult thing that they're working on right now, not a difficult role, or looking for some advice on a career page, a job description, a role they're trying to fill? What questions do you have? Yes?
Hiring people for a contact center. Remote.
Does anybody want to hell no.
Fair.
Recruiting call center remote.
Onshore. Yep. Nationwide.
Did you ask if anybody's doing it?
No.
Some advice. And bourbon's not an answer.
Fair.
No.
It's off the wall question.
No, because this is the part, right? I think about what Wes is trying to hire for, Tara, some of the digital roles you're hiring for. That sounds like, oh no. I'm happy with what I'm doing, thank you. I'll keep on my Ruby track of finding Ruby developers. That sounds way more sane than what you have.
Isn't that the investment in training? As developers, the turn cycle for getting somebody that doesn't know Ruby at all, being a somewhat decent junior, is a hard 6 months of focus. You figure out what the time is for that contact center, you come up with a training course, it's maybe 6 weeks. You don't look at somebody that off the shelf is going to be able to do that, but the company says, well, we can either spend the next 9 months really working hard and find that person that doesn't exist, or we can find a horse and just glue a horn onto it and make a unicorn.
Oh, we have that.
I have a question for you. What's your no-show rate for interviews or first day?
So we do a first, depending on the role, in different areas.
Yep.
4 to 6 weeks of training.
Yep.
Before they write the phones. 2 weeks typically at that point, following that, where we have them typically taking coach with a mentor, working day sessions afterwards. We do try and provide them that support, especially in the first 2 to 3 months. After that, weekly coaching sessions and meeting supervisors, keeping eyes on stats, all of that. basically a capstone program for about the first 3 to 6 months.
So Eric, we would agree that they're doing pretty good training, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now what?
Now, last year, during the Great Recession, we lost about a third. And
I thought you were going to
our
actually
calls
give me a
didn't
higher
stop.
number than that, so good for that.
Yeah, our calls didn't stop.
Yeah.
And so then we actually had some internal placement too,
Yep.
which was not bad by any means. People wanted to go elsewhere in the company. Good to see that investment rewarded. Now, we then moved a portion of it off to offshore,
Mm-hmm.
off to India, but we still have a fair bit, and we are still losing people who have tenure. And that's really where we're hurting more than anything else. We can get in a class and then we maybe lose a third of that to sometimes even a half, depending on what we're doing.
And if that was happening in tech, like I would quit.
I mean, it is what it is, and I've got a meeting on Monday about it, so we'll figure it out.
Can you offer retention bonuses to the high performers?
Did that last year, and still lost a third.
Are you doing exit interviews of why they're leaving? Is it just for more money? Like, are you not
It's a
compensated?
mix. You aren't wrong. Compensation is definitely always a thing. Others, it's stress. It really is just, I'm on the phones 8 hours a day, breaks and lunches, of course, but still, I want something where I'm not talking with someone. And even if it's not like an aggravated caller most of the time, I just don't want to necessarily be in that role anymore.
Does it have to be 8 hours a day?
Yep, so that is not something we can negotiate at this point, unfortunately. It was a full shift.
Can you move them to like the chat versus phone when they get frustrated?
That is a good question. So for chat, we did pilot it for a while. The issue is that we are a financial company, so a lot of it is specific information
Yeah.
where we can troubleshoot basic stuff, website support, all that fun stuff. If you are asking specifics about your policy, about your contract, anything deeply important,
Yeah.
we need to call it.
These are fully remote roles.
Hybrid and fully remote, yeah. We have if you're around the Twin Cities, you can be hybrid. If you are outside the Twin Cities, you can be fully remote.
Do those hourly rates work at all for you, like doing Fargo or the middle of Montana, or?
Yep, same. As far as I know, it's cross country.
So can you be competitive with those local, then hourly rates against somebody else? Because I know you can't. Like the easy answer is to give everybody $5 more an hour,
Yeah,
but you can't do that.
of course.
But if you could,
I mean, why not? Exactly.
how about this? We're gonna chat afterwards because I'm super curious about this now.
Fair.
Yeah.
How can you say you can't afford $5 extra an hour?
Well, first of all, let's be clear. We're not saying that somebody else is. But this is the hard part, though, right? Right now, right? For a lot of people, for a lot of companies in town, right? They are. Did I really see that Uber got acquired?
No.
No. Someone. Okay. Because by the way, there was something okay, then that was probably BS text I got. I can't imagine. What's that?
I was just asking acquired by who? Who did
I don't know. I just that's all I saw. It was a subject line.
Could be. All right, so less accusatory, same question. Right? You can't pay $5 more an hour, but you can afford to fail at half your candidates. Like, change the problem.
Yeah, no, I coach these people.
Yeah,
I
right.
bring them up. I'm not the one hiring, unfortunately, but I am part of trying to get them to change terms.
Here's the fun thing about Minibar. We actually will share information and ask questions. Welcome. What you got?
I was just going to say, what you're hearing is some of this is don't change anything but just pay more or something. But the other is there anything you can change about the job?
Oh, no,
So that's the
exactly.
chat, that's the, less time, it's something, or the culture around it, so people say, well, if I'm going to get a call center job, I want to go to this company because their webpage, the pictures they're showing, the culture they talk about makes this sound like a better place.
I mean, we're
So
doing.
you can't change everything you can.
By the way, I can't imagine trying to fix this problem. This is why I want to talk to you later to figure if I can help fix this problem. Because no.
We're doing free lunches on Tuesday and happy hours after work on Thursday starting this month. So we'll see how that pans out.
Go ahead.
Hey, I have like an out-of-the-box idea that I'm probably not even qualified to pitch to you because I'm not a recruiter or anything. But like, could the company invest in some kind of mental health resource for the employees, like access to some stress relieving thing?
Stress balls, just ship them out to every company. fair, that's fair. No, absolutely. No, that's a fair point. More mental health resources is definitely.
We're going to fix this while we're here. I know we're here. All right. Someone else have a, yes?
Is there some clear differences in strategy between different types of roles? So like early stage equity-based roles versus growing your team and you're just hiring tons of engineers at once. Do you get what I'm asking?
Sort of. Can you take another swing at it?
Yeah, so like I want to compensate my early employees with equity and really not pay them a full salary. Like, is there a difference in how I find those people versus how I find just posting them online on LinkedIn?
So different ways to be able to find people? Maybe you're a seed stage, early startup, and you have to do equity more than salary because that's where you are?
Yes.
Um,
Is it the same strategy to find them?
I would tell the story just as that. I mean, there are a lot of people in Minneapolis, St. Paul, in the Midwest who are looking for that, to take that risk on. There's a lot of sourcing to go on with that one, right? Like, you're going to have to figure out who are the last 20. I would figure out, first of all, wow, off the top of my head, I would try to figure out who has their 4-year vested done at another startup and see if I can get them interested in another new one. I'm going to try to find someone who worked at Sport Engine 6 years ago who wants to go work at a startup again. I mean, the scenario I used earlier today, there's a company that's in the Bay Area called Beza. They're here in town, 8 to 10 engineers. They were at 40 at Christmas time. They're 70 now. Just came out of a legit stealth pattern. They've now raised $100 million. I've made it very clear with them I want to help them in some way. Because I think that story would sell, right? Because I can tell people, like, we've got a 2-year runway. So coming to work here, we can actually pay competitive salaries. You can earn equity, and we're safe.
Okay, so share that story.
Yep. If you can. Like, so I frequently will say to startup folks, share as much information as you can.
Yeah.
You know, if you can say, like, we raised this much money, this is our valuation, this is our runway. The problem is that most CEOs don't want you to do it for competitive reasons. As a recruiter, I need that info, though. I need to be able to say it in a candidate conversation. If I can, I want to say it in a job description, that we just raised X million dollars at this valuation. We are safe, sane, and stable for the next 30 months. And then for people, or 6 months, like whatever it is. So that people can go, oh, so I can have some tenure here. I can put some roots down here. Again, I'm concerned, and maybe I'm projecting, but I think that the last 2.5 years have collectively kicked our ass. And if we can find a really cool place to work with really nice people, get paid well, and have some stability, how many people aren't going to sign up for that right now, right?
Yeah.
And so I would just share as much information as they'll let you do it.
Thank you.
Matt.
I have a question for you. I feel like, knowing you've been shouting this stuff from the rooftops for years, but I wonder how much of it is falling on deaf ears. Like, as hiring managers with recruiting teams, you might be thinking, sure, these are great things to do, but we don't have the time. And what I'm wondering about is, like, is there a service that does that for you? Is it hiring an agency to do it? Is it hiring you to do it? Like, is there appetite to pay somebody else to solve that problem for you?
The first half of your question is this. I think because we're doing the whole chasing our tail thing, right? I have hiring managers who say to me, I don't have time to hire, and I don't have time to do panel interviews. I can't do the interviews. I don't have time. And you don't have time because you're short-staffed, because you never did the interviews, because you're like, we're just chasing ourselves. And at some point in time, someone's got to go stop. Or don't. And just keep doing Einstein's, right? Expecting a different result. What is that, the definition of insanity? Right? Keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I mean, sooner or later, we're just going to burn out. I will actually tell you, I think half the time I am shouting in the wind. I have come to this conclusion, like, just let companies struggle with it. Because I don't think in a lot of places it actually wants to get fixed. To say that we keep saying we don't have time, but we go back to January 6th of 2020. For a lot of us, for the corporate recruiter HR folks in the room, right, we had 2 years to fix this. We really did. And so I don't know, is there a service to be able to do it? There are most contract recruiters are focusing just on putting butts in chairs, generally speaking. I think the marketing piece and recruiting HR is a unique, not well done skill set. I know that, this is just me thinking out loud. I am trying to figure out what the next version of me is. Do I want to do another project, day-to-day delivery, running someone's tech function? At least in that startup case, the answer is yes. But do I just become more quarterback coach? Have a few clients, try to walk them through it? I know this, though. I think that the pitch that I'll start making will now be to CTOs versus VP of HR. Like, can I be a marketing person? If you could have a marketing person who can do recruiting for you, dedicated to you and your team, would you be interested? And I think it'd be a resounding yes. Yep.
So just kind of looking at the page and everything's about hiring.
Yep.
I know retention is the other key challenge. So in terms of like, there's not time for this, there's not time, well, yeah, but 30% of your people are,
Yeah.
And some of that is just managers can be shitty managers. Like, we're not growing the skill sets of our managers, and people often leave for managers.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is we're not onboarding people well. Like, where does HR fit in terms of changing the culture around retention as well as how you're finding it?
One of the things that I've been doing over the last couple of years is to say to my recruiter friends, figure out what is the percentage of your roles are backfills and how many of them are new hires. And in there you go, most of the time you go, oh crap, right? We can't even get to, there are a couple of groups in town that they haven't even started doing 2022 recruiting yet because they're still trying to make up for last year, right? And it's like, what's the cost to that? And again, it's not that you can say, in some cases, you can't just give everybody a $7,000 raise on your tech team times 400 people. You just can't. It was interesting to me to watch how many companies in town were talking about mental health wellness month. And it was interesting to me that most of the companies that were talking about it weren't the ones having lots of issues, because they were addressing the problem, and they had been addressing the problem. And companies that weren't talking about it are the ones that are having major issues with turnover. Like, at some point in time, I sound like I'm not trying to be such a philosopher here today, although I have been much of the day. The idea is that at what point in time does this become a human business? Right? Like, when do we finally start taking care of our people? And when do we actually start, like, I don't know. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to be pessimist. I don't have a lot of faith right now in a lot of leadership teams. And they're just going to keep grinding away because they think they're going to find more. Sooner or later, they're not. Yeah.
I would say, just to draw a common thread through everything you just said, I think like leadership, I'm a small company, but as a leader and a founder, at some point you have to say the buck stops with me. And if you don't own that, you will fail. So my aha moment was, if I didn't learn how to recruit, if I didn't learn how to hire, retain, I was going to fail and have to start another company or go to work at Target. So, and I didn't want to do that. So at some point, leaders have to take the ownership of that. And it's not just hiring, it's recruiting, it's retention, all that. And it all starts at that hiring moment. So I think until it goes up high enough, you say go to the CTO instead of the VP of marketing. I think that's true, unless it's owned at that level and there's an awareness to like, hey, it's not just, oh, this is a tough market. It's like, this has got to be a part of our core competencies as leaders. That company's going to fail.
I think one of the things that we're learning, it's none of the hiring managers in this room, I'm sure, but most of the time someone gets promoted to director of software engineering or a manager of software engineering because they were the best software developer or the best lead, and then they didn't get any training on how to be a leader, right? And then they're stressed, and then their team is stressed. Again, this is not one of those things that we're going to fix here today because now we're getting into like a lot of other things. But
one other thing, and Matt's panel this morning was on coding exercises and like just talking about is it good, is it bad? And it's like at the end of the day, it's a human element. It's like treat your people you're bringing on with empathy. Be the person doing that, thinking about okay, if I was on the other end of this, what would I do? So
So it almost starts there. I mean, it's easier said than done, but if you don't have just a basic level of empathy, and after you hire, remembering a lot of stuff, like you'll never retain, you'll never do all that stuff. It's easier in a small company, but I think it is a human element, and some of it's just common sense, but I don't know.
Yes.
So speaking of the human element, I'm kind of curious from your talk on job descriptions, how often are you actually finding someone their first entry is through your job description page versus a person within the company reaching out to them directly? Because that's been my experience. It's the only people I actually get on. They don't even really read the job description because they've already had a conversation before they.
I mean, I'm huge into the analytics side of this to begin with. Like I want to know what is the Google Analytics to our career page. Most applicant tracking systems, I don't know what your experience here is like. Most applicant tracking systems, there's a gap between who was on the career page and then how many actually jumped over. But like most of us will try to figure out like what does the funnel look like as best we can. What's the original source of where they came from? Was it LinkedIn and Indeed? Is it the career page? Is it our company page? For me, like I use Bitly all the time. I get that it's all right tool, but it's free, quick, and easy to use. But like every time I do a social media post, like I'm making sure that I'm tracking what's going on, that I know like how many people went on this, then how many people actually applied. I want to find source of hire all the time as best I can. Sometimes you're working with your marketing folks. Sometimes it's your analytics folks. Does that answer part of the question?
Yeah, so I guess in your experience, how much of it is actually just coming from those kind of anonymous, someone comes to the page versus like you're kind of courting them or someone in your company is directly.
By the way, how are we doing for time if I see people walking already? Are we at time?
5 minutes until the next one.
So we're already 5 minutes over? Oh, hell. I didn't know. Okay, first, thank you. Second, if anybody wants to nerd outside the room with me, I'll do that for a while. Thank you for coming.